Just some items of business. We have an apology from the Mayor for late arrival. We have an apology from Councillor Rutledge for early departure. I would welcome Nico Frizzell here for a representative of the Youth Council of Nelson. I'm expecting to see Adam Burton at some stage. He's here, is he? Are you Adam?
Yes, sorry, I'm running very, very late.
Welcome, Adam.
Thank you.
A reminder to everybody that we are live streaming through the Council's YouTube channel, so just remember the procedure with the microphones. Councillor Skinner, welcome. We have quite a long list of people for public forum today, so we're going to be going over the normal time for public forum, but I think it's worthwhile. We've scheduled 45 minutes, in fact. In terms of the order of business, we've withdrawn one item from the confidential agenda, which I'll announce when we get to the confidential section of the meeting. And I think we now move to item 3 on our agenda and ask anyone who has an interest in any of the items that are in front of us today to declare them, either now or at the appropriate time. Mr. Murray?
Yes, as usual, I may have a conflict with item 7 in the confidential update on strategic property matters. Because there is no paperwork associated with that, I don't actually know if I do or I don't, but I'll put it up there, and if I do, I'm out the door.
It'll be on the record. Thank you, Mr. Murray. And of course, update your interest register through the governance advisors. So, we now move to item 4, public forum, and our first public forum presenter is James Lazor, the General Manager of Rainbow Sports Club Incorporated. An update for us. James, welcome to the table.
Thanks very much.
You have 10 minutes if you need them. If you don't need them, please don't. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm the general manager of Rainbow Ski Area. About a year ago, I was brought on board, and I am the first full-time year-round employee that we've had as a club field. So I just wanted to give you a quick update as to where we are for this past season. Let's see if I can get this done. Might take 10 minutes now.
Hey, Kelsey, that is working 10 seconds ago.
Thanks.
Just go grab some pictures.
All right. I guess I can have questions first and start with the easy part.
Just while we're waiting, and for the information of all presenters to public forum, there is a bell system. When you get near to the end of your allotted time, the first bell will ring. When the second bell rings, that is it.
This is an aerial photograph that was taken last year by our rescue helicopter when they came in. We were very blessed last season with the amount of snow that we had, natural snow that we had, and we had all over New Zealand. It was probably one of the best years in the industry that we've had. Eventually. So last year we had 22,000 visitors at the ski area. We are the largest club field that is in New Zealand. We will operate sort of in a hybrid model. We are a club by the Rainbow Sports Club, yet we are open to the general public. Okay. Sorry about this. That's the one. This past year, there was a big move between operations and the committee. So the committee has moved on into a more of a governance role, which is quite different than it has been for the past 14 years. So we laid out our strategic goals for the ski area this past year. This is a little bit about what we did by having year-round employees to be able to change our exposure within the Facebook and the social media market. MailChimp, we have now over 22,000 or 2,200 people that get our newsletters that go out on a monthly basis. This is a little bit about the data from the mountain. We had over 22,000 visitors. Our vehicle count was about 6,000 is what it was, which was quite high. We had 5 weekends or 5 days during the winter where we were parked down the road with about 900 people and close to 300 cars. Not a bad problem from an operations standpoint. This is from the Ski Areas Association in New Zealand, where we fit compared to the other club fields. So we are a large club field from that end. So we do operate operationally more like a commercial field from what we do. This is a little bit about our comparison compared to the far left, which is the NZ Ski. So there's a drastic difference between the commercial fields and the club fields. NZ Ski reports as one numbers versus the Whakapapa and Taroa that report separately. Our goal, internal goal now, or external goal, is to get back to the 35,000 visitor mark, which is what the high number was during our commercial era. We also this year, because there's myself and our operations team leader, our full-time employees, we opened up for the summertime. We did 10-day blocks throughout the summer, opened the mountain with a $15 user charge for the road, for hiking, biking, and just exposing people to the mountain. Our January block was quite successful. I think part of it because it fell during school holidays, and a lot of people came up. In February, we did a Rogaine event. We had 260 participants in it, and we raised close to $6,000 for the Motueka adventure team who's going to the Sir Edmund Hillary Challenge. Obviously, we are a ski field first. We operate on an average of 72 days a year. This year we were open 86 days. This was a typical day on the mountain for us. We were very blessed with the snow. Some people did you got a lot of powder to be able to do it. This is our main face, looking down the main run. Groomer, we have 2 groomer that we have. Both are rather old, and in the next several years we'll replace them. They're about $300,000 for a used one is what they are. Our biggest issue is cash flow because we operate on a cash basis, and we operate really only for 72 days a year. This is our intermediate slope, which is probably our beginner and intermediate slopes are our business part of our market. Because of our school groups, we had over 2,700 students that were up there, and we're looking to expand that. Being here in Nelson and Blenheim now for 1 year, it's quite interesting that people usually only come up once in their lifetime with their school group. So what we've done is given them a certificate when they're done to try to bring mom and dad, guardians, and the kids back up several times at a discounted rate to expose them to it. I come from the Queenstown area, so very fortunate that for a whole term our students get to go up to the mountains, and that's because of the mountains. A little bit of partnerships. We've reached out to businesses within the communities, Blenheim and Nelson, to be able to put together programs to be able to showcase them. We have some amazing partners that have helped us throughout the years, and they've all really stepped up this past year is what they have. A little bit about our priorities. Our road is our #1 item to be able to get to us. We're an 8K Alpine road, hasn't been worked on in about 8 years or about 5 years. Edridge Contracting is coming in this year, and they're going to help us and resurface it. We've allocated about $85,000 to it this year. Snow is our #2 thing. If we don't have snow, we can't operate. And we made a commitment this year to 2 brand new Techno Alpin fan guns, $120,000 commitment, $60,000 each. Those will get installed this weekend. So we will be able to make snow from the top to the bottom. in about 80 hours in what we would say in the industry is a marginal temperature, -1, -2. This is a little bit summertime, our road. This is what our road looked like. We did have an incident last year, just because of our lack of cash flow in previous years. We had a generator fire, and fortunately, out of Christchurch, we had a generator on site in 24 hours, so we only really lost a day. Quite an ordeal bringing it up in the middle of winter. Of course, it happened to be a snowy day. Oh, sorry. So this was our fan gun that will go in this year. The technology is quite amazing. We've also added on the benefit that eventually we'd like to automate it, which means that you could operate it from your mobile phone device or your laptop. And so the goal would be eventually, as we put more up, we'll be able to upgrade our whole system.
2 minutes left.
Accommodations.
Including questions.
I'll give you the video and then that's it. I need Kelsey for that, I think.
Yeah.
This is a typical Saturday or Sunday with the car park.
I remember the day, still remember the time. I remember the place and the weather when I heard the news about you. Things just ain't.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, James. I think very informative.
Yeah, I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks.
Item 4.2 on the agenda is Mr. Nelson for the public forum on behalf of your family trust. Brian, you have 10 minutes as you're speaking on behalf of an organisation, but if you don't need the 10 minutes, we can use the time for questions.
Thank you, everybody. I'm speaking as my family is a property owner in Montgomery Square, and I'm also speaking for another family which is a property owner in Montgomery Square. The properties we own are retail properties. My family's property's got 3 retail shops in it, and the other family's properties include the Briscoe's building and the Phoenix Arcade. What we're asking, we understand that the market license is coming up for renewal in July of this year, and our submission is that we want the market moved to another place from Montgomery Square. It has been in Montgomery Square for 30 years or so. We feel that the burden of the market has fallen on the property owners of Montgomery Square. The market is undoubtedly a public benefit, but the cost of the market is falling on us. We feel that we have done the heavy lifting for the last 30 years and everyone else has benefited except us. We want the burden shifted elsewhere. The position seems to be that weekend shopping is what is now required by all the national retailers, all the chains, all the people who have larger stores. They want to trade on Saturday and Sunday, and they can't because of the Saturday market blocking access to their stores. Recently we've had Briscoe's and Rebel Sports, who are the 2 biggest retailers, saying they're moving out of Montgomery Square. It's because of the market blocking access for their customers on Saturdays and Sundays, their main trading days. We think the council has a duty to support retailing in the city centre and not drive it out. And we feel that the renewal of the market licence is driving out retailing. At the beginning of the year, there was the Bay Dreams concert at Trafalgar Park, and the council decided to close Wakatu Square for one day for parking for those who were attending the concert. You may recall that the retailers of Wakatu Square vigorously protested that they were losing one day of trading. Now, if you multiply that effect by 50, that's what happens to the retailers of Montgomery Square. We pay rates on my family property, the rates are $55,000 a year. There is an uplift on those rates because it is said that the council is providing parking and other facilities. The uplift is something like 150%, so I've been told. And yet the council takes Saturday and Sunday and licenses it off to a private operator to run a market for the public benefit. It's not for our benefit. It takes away our two best trading days for larger format retailers, and it flogs them off. It gets rent from the market operator for the square. There are 329 car parking spaces in Montgomery Square which are lost. Then we have all the people who go to the market and they take up a lot of car parking spaces in the central city, probably another 600 or more car parking spaces taken up in the central city by people who are attending the market. So there's a shortage of car parking in the central city on the shopping days of Saturday and Sunday, but it's not for shopping, it's for people going to the market. And people go to the market and they buy their bread, they buy fruit and vegetables, they buy some artisan cheese, or they take their visitors from Auckland or Christchurch or somewhere to the market. It's a tourist operation. They might have lunch in a cafe afterwards, but they're not shopping. They're not supporting the retailers. And we think the council has a duty to support the retailers. I spoke to the manager of one of the stores and I said, what is the spin-off from the market? She said, there is no spin-off from the market. She said, we don't sell anything during the market. Only when the market packs up, which is at about, it closes at 1 and it's packed up and left by about 2, only from 2 o'clock onwards do they get back to normal trading. So it's a great cost for the public good which is being borne by the property owners and retailers in Montgomery Square, and it's simply not fair. What I was thinking was, where should it go? Because it is an icon, I accept that, but the Nelson Market should go somewhere. And I was thinking probably on the Maitai Riverbank by the Trafalgar Centre at the end of Parapara Road, where there is plenty of parking, plenty of space, and I think the council has previously tried that with the farmers market, but they didn't like it because they didn't get enough passing trade. I would say that the Nelson Market is such an icon that it attracts its own customers. It's not necessary to rely on passing trade. I was in Napier the other day and I noticed their market, which is probably bigger than the Nelson market, was located in a fairly similar position to what the Maitai Riverbank is. It was located between the CBD and the port on the waterfront, and there were masses of people attending it. I don't see why shifting the market to the Maitai Riverbank.
There's 2 minutes left, Brian, including time for any questions.
Shifting the market to the Maitai Riverbank cannot be achieved. The council would have to come to the party and provide facilities there. It would have to customise it, make it more attractive. It's already put in a nice walkway down the riverbank that can be used as part of the market too. It's easily accessible to the city. Someone else said, well, what about having it more centrally located? I would prefer it not to be centrally located because of the fact that market attendees take the parking. But New Street, it hasn't got any retailers in it. Perhaps something could be done around New Street where it connects through to that Kirby's Lane, where the farmers market is located on Wednesdays. Or perhaps Nile Street East could be closed and it could be put in there. But it has to go from Montgomery Square. That is our bottom line. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I don't think there are any questions. So thank you for your attendance. We do have one question. Councillor Burke, you've got a few minutes.
Yeah, thanks. Very brief question. Thanks for your presentation, Mr. Nelson. I'm just wondering, how long is your trust or family trust own? How long is your family trust own?
About 21 years.
So it came in after the market?
Yes, I think the market was originally started in Buxton Square, I think, and then it shifted to Montgomery Square.
Right.
Now, I think retailing has changed a lot, and we've got more, the bigger retailers tend to be national chains now, and so things have changed.
Councillor Delvig.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Brian, the amount of money or turnover that will be missing on that day, Wakatu, for example, we got to know how much they were missing in one day. What's the total retail that you think you're missing on the Saturday?
I don't have those figures, I'm afraid, but as I said, with one of the large shops, the manager told me that she did no trading during the market. So, but I can't, honestly, I don't have the figures.
No. Thank you, Brian. That's the full allotted time. Sorry to anyone else who had questions, but all presenters, please note you have an allotted time which includes questions. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
I will now call upon Jackie Walters. Is Jackie Walters here today? Welcome, Jackie. You want to speak about the Nelson Market as well, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you.
At 3 minutes, you'll get that first bell.
Righto. Hello, everyone. I'm here as a personal friend of Nita Knight, who owns the Nelson Market business, and also from time to time I give her advice as a PR consultant. That's my other hat. And I've also worked as a PR person with several of the businesses that operate from the Nelson Market over the last 7 years, nearly. I wanted to just speak in support of Nita and continuing to operate her market from Montgomery Square. It is a community hub, I think, as many widely acknowledge, but it's also an incubator of exciting business for Nelson. And I think that if you shift it from its current location, that would be more difficult to achieve. I think that it's working effectively where it is, despite the previous presenter to me, and I understand his reasons for saying what he has said. However, I think that shifting an iconic business's location inevitably diminishes it, and it takes time to rebuild after such a thing happens. So I would strongly encourage the council to keep it where it is and not mess with something that has been extremely successful. I know that Pick is going to speak shortly, and he's a great example of success, but there are others such as Hogarth Chocolate, Dove River Peonies, Banjo Brews. Those are just some of the businesses that have started at the market and built national and international reputations. And that's all I have to say. If anyone wants to ask me
Thank you,
anything, you're
Jackie.
welcome.
We do have time for questions. But we don't have anyone wishing to ask any questions, so thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you.
today. Now call upon Mr. Pico. Wishing to speak about the market. Mr. Pico, you have, like the others, 5 minutes.
Thank you. So I started my business in the Nelson market 11 years ago, and I think this has been pivotal to the success of our company. I see the market as a driver of economic growth, of providing opportunity and for businesses and to try out their ideas, see if they work, and find out, you know, what's good for them. I see the market as so key to growth in Nelson that I can't imagine our city without it. In fact, I'd be looking to, you know, shift my business if I felt we no longer had the market. So at the moment I'm planning to set up an inventor centre where people have a crack at, you know, making food products that they've been keen to make, and the market is an integral part of this. So I have the plan that people can come in and try making, you know, their things and taking it down to the market and finding whether they have demand for this. And I'd be devastated if anything affected the market. I'd like to see that market affecting the whole of Nelson City. So if it so happens that there are better uses for the properties around the edge of the market, I think they should adapt to the market rather than trying to force the market to adapt to their requirements. So those are my thoughts on that matter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pico. We have some questions. Firstly, Councillor McGurk.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Pick, for your presentation. Just a quick question. You talked about your tryout ideas. I know you've got a stall in the market. Do you use the market as a sort of a test bed for some of your ideas and products?
Oh, absolutely. And it's an essential part of who we are to meet the visitors to Nelson and to show them what we do and encourage them to come down and visit us at the factory.
Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Rutledge.
Thank you. Hi, Pick, Mike Rutledge here. I think everybody agrees that the market's a fabulous part of Nelson. Do you think that it would work in any other location?
I really don't. I mean, I was involved, actually, before I went to the Nelson market, before space became available, I was out at Founders with the farmers market. That was very difficult. It only attracted a small number of people. And when it moved to Fashion Island, you know, it was more useful. I haven't been to it since it's been down by the river. I have no idea whether it's still running or not. But to come into town and attend the market, I mean, it's my idea of heaven was a Saturday morning spent at the Nelson market. Whereas my idea of hell is going to a shopping mall.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dalberg.
Yeah, thanks, Beck, for your presentation. Bill Dalberg. Hey, when we talked about the Bay Dreams and the Wakatu out here, they were talking about missing $100,000 trading on a Saturday, and we modified the parking to allow their cars to get access. Can we actually I'm assuming that's the sort of money that's missing over on a Saturday morning for the other retailers. Reasonably large amount. Can we actually modify the parking? Because that's the problem, is getting parking in front of their big store.
My feeling around car parking isn't really for discussion here, because I think, you know, our cities have been ruined by car parks, and I really think the market where it offers people walking, I really don't think we should be abandoning the centre of our town to motor vehicles. And I think that the market performs a wonderful job like that, bringing people together and getting the cars out of there. It's my feel. I don't drive.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yeah, I appreciate that. So I'm being a councillor, you have to try and balance everything out.
Yeah. So
what's your thoughts on how we come to some arrangement to compensate these people for like a business? Because
I feel that
it obviously is happening.
Those big box, they've only been there since the market has been running, and so they knew what they're letting themselves in for. I think there are much better uses for those places. Should be taking advantage of the Saturday crowds. They should, you know, a different business model. I mean, if they choose to run a big box thing that demands people, drive up in their cars and carry stuff in and out. There's probably better places for them to be located. I think, it's up to the businesses to take advantage of the environment that they're in, and I think the market's the existing environment, and I think it's a treasure, and I think, that's what we need to be doing with our retail space around there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Pecco. That completes your presentation, and thank you very much indeed for it. Now I would like to ask Nita Knight, representing the Nelson Market Limited, to join us. And remind you, Nita, you have 10 minutes, and we understand you have a PowerPoint presentation. I hope it's been tested beforehand. Hello, Nita.
Thank you. Good morning, Councillor Barker. Thank you very much. Morning, councillors and management, and thank you for the time and listening. I had some things were distributed. Have they been distributed? Okay. Okay, so I'll just start reading off here very quickly because it's before you anyhow, but it's been really exciting to see the Nelson Market grow and develop, and to support the many thousands, I realised, of store holders and throughout the years, and to see many small market businesses grow and go from strength to strength. I'm very happy with the contribution that the Nelson Market has obviously made to the economy, the local economy, and the creative well-being of the region. And the way it's contributed to putting Nelson on the map as a popular tourist destination, and that is very satisfying. An important aspect of markets is that they provide a neutral, non-political, social venue where all people of all ages can be part of their community. And this market is a no politics market. We're absolutely neutral. We do not have any politics on the market. I just want to add there that some people will point to Nick Smith, our local MP and council. That is the one site on the car park that belongs to the Nelson City Council, and they've chosen to put Nick Smith there. With the ongoing involvement of my family, my son Jason Knight who manages the Sunday market, and Lex, our right hand there, we would like to go on with the markets. Sorry, I've lost it there. With the ongoing involvement of family, my son Jason Knight, my loyal staff and store holders and council, I would welcome the opportunity to continue operating a dynamic and exciting market. Monty's Market. There's never much talk about the Sunday market, but as the need for more space at the Saturday market for artisan goods grew, Monty's Sunday Market was established as a place for selling recycled, vintage, second-hand and imported goods. It has become an important venue for individuals and community organisations to raise money and reduce waste. Monty Sunday Market could be called a triumph in recycling. Thank you to Nelson City Councillors, management, and staff for your support to date and for your time in considering my application today. And I've got a small, if you look through this, there is some photographs there of various goods on the market and references in support. Mr. Chairman, there's two references that late references that are supposed to, from the Nelson Hospice.
We have it. Yes, we have it.
They're not on the table here.
Yes, we have them.
Okay. So if you would look through those references, and then at the end here we have Google review, which is, I think the highest rating is 5, and on the 16th of February it was 4.5 for the Nelson Market. So that. Now I've got a very short PowerPoint presentation. And I'm not familiar with PowerPoint, so we'll have a go. Any good advice? Okay. In the beginning, the early days at the Millers Acre car park. That's myself on the left, believe it or not, and my standard 10 car in the background. Catherine Bosnahan from Fairfield and Alan Stanton, and I think that's his son, doing a fundraising for the restoration of Fairfield House. They're moving to a new home. No. Oh, sorry. Yeah. That photo news is 1983, and there's some various photographs of early market days on Montgomery Square. As the market became more popular, these photographs were taken, so it's become a booming market and also a vibrant social meeting place, that I really have to emphasise that. Right, these are just some individuals from the market. These are the, I've forgotten her name, the Kamatua's wife from the marae. There's Prince Charles, who apparently they requested to come and visit the market when they were here. So there's our mayor and Prince Charles and Camilla, and there's my son Jason and myself, Philip Williston, Lex, and one of our cashiers who was there for 10 years, and look, even the police go shopping there. And there's Jason again. So, who was that, Jason? I'm sorry? Ben Wright, shaking hands with Ben Wright. And some of our stall holders. And the market has helped to launch brands: Proper Crisp, Pix Peanut Butter, Hogarth's, Miso, Urban Hippie, Nelson Naturally, and Atholf Jams. So it's an incubator where businesses can launch their products and brands. I think that is it for me. If there's any questions? Oh, thank you. I was a bit nervous.
Mine, Mr. Chair, is a question, thanks Nita, for the presentation, to you or Chief Executive, just in terms of the way that the agenda's been structured, is that this item's in the public excluded part of the agenda. So there's a lot of questions. Is Nita remaining for that? She can't actually, but when we get to ask questions of detail within that public excluded part.
This is a public forum. We're dealing with public forum now. The business will be transacted.
Yeah, so I can't ask Nita about terms signed.
About what?
About commercial elements that are within the public excluded part of the agenda, presumably.
You could ask her questions about the operation of her business, but not about the matter on the agenda.
Huh?
So you actually can come up with a question or not, because we're running out of time.
Oh, okay. Keep going and I'll get my question.
Okay, we'll come to Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Nita, for your presentation today. You say you expanded to the Sunday market because you needed space. Is space a problem? Is it a challenge for you? I don't like the word problem. Is it a challenge for you?
Not at the moment, no. Not at the moment.
The market is still growing, is it, or is it levelled out? Is there?
It's levelled out, but I don't take everything that presents itself, because it's got to be, it's got to have quality, or it cannot have 4 of something, unless it's vegetables or something like that. But as far as goods are concerned, it just doesn't have the same impact.
No, and there are spaces available for newcomers to. It's not a closed.
Yes, there is.
There's always spaces available.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Nita, for your presentation. What year did you say your market started?
Well, that's a bone of contention, 1978 or 1979. I say 1978.
Okay,
because we were on Miller's Acre. You see, where there was a trial period before I actually had a...
Okay, so that's where it seems a wee bit of contention there. There's the group, the Women's Emergency Centre, started it in 1978, and I believe you started it separately in 1980, but there always seems to be a difference there. And I see a photo there earlier on, there's a photo of you there in 1979, but that was at a women's refuge market.
Look,
Just the only reason I'm bringing this up just brings a bit of importance in regards to another question, as regards to there was a understanding of some charitable money, a portion of the market going to what is now a refuge.
all right.
I was just saying if that was something you're still doing, I don't know.
No, can I give you the history of that then? Initially, it was set out for the Women's Refuge. The Women's Refuge were to, they had a market once, fundraising I think once or twice a year for the Women's Refuge. I was unaware of that because I'd come from elsewhere.
Fair enough.
Pardon?
Carry on, fair enough. Yep.
I think we've got your message, Nita.
Okay.
Yeah, we know what
the
story is there.
So just for clarification, like 1978 or 1980?
Well, she's answered
Not
as well as she
1980.
can.
1979. So I'll leave that to be answered later. Thank you.
Nico?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Nita, for your presentation again. I was just thinking, because there's not many businesses out in that car park out there, would it be possible to do the market there where it wouldn't...
Nico, can you bring the microphone a little closer? We can't hear you.
Okay, sorry. I was thinking, because there aren't very many businesses out in that council car park, I'm not sure of its official name, but would it be possible to move the market there? Because then it wouldn't affect other businesses and it would still be quite close to the centre of town.
Just your opinion on it, Nita.
Well, absolutely no, I'm afraid, because the cars have still got to go somewhere. It's going to go somewhere. Because we move to somewhere else doesn't mean it's going to clear another area. Really, because the car parking is still going to take place in other areas that the market attracts that.
Thanks, Nita. We've actually gone over our time. Mr. Peters, did you have a very quick question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Nita, for your presentation. I'm interested in the structure of the business around the market and whether you're able to answer how dependent is it on you personally, or is it something that can operate without Nita Knight?
Yeah. Absolutely not.
Thank you.
No one can operate it like I operate it because they're not me. You know, that's it. I mean, someone else operates it, it will be a totally different market because they're totally different people.
Understand that. I just wondered if there was a business structure behind you that would survive you. That was what I was asking.
Oh, yes. Well, I have my son who has been working with me for many years with the market, and also a very loyal small group of staff, which is Lex, who has been with us for 10 years. The previous person who worked with me for 10 years and may be coming back. So I feel that I've got a good family structure. My granddaughter is very interested in joining in with us too. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peterson. Thank you, Nita.
Thank you.
That completes your presentation. As you know, the discussion in accordance with the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act for valid reasons is being held in the confidential section when we'll be making the decision of this council as a recommendation to council. So you'll no doubt be contacted at some stage to make you aware of what happens in the confidential section.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Nita. Final presentation is Mr. Graham O'Brien, who has 5 minutes.
Yeah, thanks very much. Maybe just as staff's handing out those documents, maybe I'll just have a couple of minutes while you get that document. I'd like to clarify some of the stuff that's just been said. That market photo was actually in 1978, and it's been taken. That photo was taken at at the market when the Women's Welfare Committee ran it. That's fact. This paper that you're getting handed out now, it's all facts, and it's all from Council's own archived records. I spent 6 months putting that together, and anyone want to challenge me on it, go for your life, including Nita. It's very, very important, and I'll start as soon as you get all that stuff together.
Sorry, your time's running at the moment.
No, I'm sorry, it isn't, Councillor Barker. You're still getting the information.
It is running.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you for letting me speak today in the interest of fair and participatory democracy. I believe that a multiple of issues need to be unpicked and dealt with before the lease can be renewed. Firstly, the original founders have a right to be heard and the evidence reviewed in a full and open submission process. The Women's Emergency Centre could be said to have, from the 1979 Council decision, a legitimate expectation that it would be consulted and possibly provided for if there were to be any change mooted, that the Council was prevented from doing a U-turn because of its representations that the First Market could continue indefinitely, which the First Market organisers relied upon to their detriment, it would seem, and that there is a moral case that the charitable interest of the Women's Emergency Centre was disregarded back then, and that there should be some restoration of what I believe lawyers call the status quo ante. That they were given the right to have a market that was taken away without any chance to put forward their case until now. Mr Doherty, Divisional Manager Support Services, dated 14th of September 2006, following the 7-year renewal of the lease, stated, entrepreneurs and innovators would be discouraged from developing good ideas for council land. If the idea was successful, there would be a real risk that council would take that business away from them. I put to you that this is exactly what was done to the Women's Emergency Centre in 1979, and it is time for that wrong to be righted by the very same organisation that was responsible, Nelson City Council, in some way. Shall I stop, councillors? Thank you. Ms Collis was one of the founders of the Emergency Centre and on the Essential Relief Committee at the time, and has had discussions with a wide variety of people in and out of the market. There seems to be issues, different rules apply to different people at different times. To address what could be serious issues, a confidential submission process must also be initiated to protect any people who wish to submit their personal accounts. Then there is the issue of politics, that only one party has the right by council decree to be in the car park legitimately is so outrageous that I fail to see how any unbiased discussion could be allowed, could allow the situation to continue. That although the incumbent operator states no politics in the market, council has wrote themselves a nice little clause allowing them to be in the market, and therefore that is politicking. There is no space for a speaker's corner where issues such as climate change, plastic waste or council spending can be put forward, or for local candidates during local elections. The market has by default become our town square where people gather. It is a public space and it is very unique because, as for any who have read Naomi Klein will understand, that our public spaces are being commercialised and we are losing a very important part of our culture of how people gather and communicate ideas in person. To summarise, there is ample amount of proof from council's own records that the market was given to the incumbent operator under a very suspect process that needs to be addressed. There seems to be enough concern amongst Nelson people in the way the market is being managed and the effect this may have on people's lives and livelihoods to have a confidential process to address their concerns as a priority. And as this is being done on public land, the council has a responsibility to look into these issues or risk being a willing party to it through inaction. That the special rights conferred by council on one political party is at odds with the basis of our laws, that everyone is equal regardless of position or money, and that space must be made for all political parties and public speaking. Until these issues have been resolved, no decision can be made. The lease does not expire till July 31st and can run under a temporary lease if needed until the submission process are finished. I wish to question why the debate on the lease has been publicly excluded, apart from the actual dollar value that the incumbent operator receives from the market, which could easily be refrained from speaking out loud. Everything else is in the public arena. We have a copy of the contract which states terms and conditions. The percentage of the take by council, which is $80,000 a year, and that has been for the last few years and expected to continue, has also been made public knowledge through council records. So the only debate you are to have is being kept from the public because you are probably, or more to the point, some people who have control of such things do not wish the debate to be witnessed. And that, my good councillors, is not a reason under the Meetings Act legislation. And I'll leave you you with this thought. By keeping the debate from the public, I would put forward that a number of the elected representatives run a real risk in at least the case of political neutrality to be accused of imputed or apparent bias, and I quote, through his or her conduct or behaviour gives rise to a suspicion that he or she is not impartial. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Graham. I've got one question indicated, and that is from Councillor Ackland.
Good on you, Councillor.
Thanks. Thank you for your public forum item. It's always it's full of information, Graham. It's always densely compacted.
It's only 5 minutes, that's the problem, isn't it?
Just on I just wanted to clarify something, because one thing that stuck out of my mind that seemed to sort of clang a bit in my head was the reference to Naomi Klein and commercial space being, public space being taken over by commercial interest. Do you not see that the Nelson market is different in character to a strict sort of commercial enterprise, in the sense of big retail? This is a space, a public space with access of community members to actually tout their wares in a much more social or community way, like having a sort of incubator or even just a sort of community-based retail as opposed to commercialising the area.
Sure, but I think you find that the reference to Naomi Klein is that even though it's a public space, like the malls, basically, the public can go there, the public can buy things or maybe sell things if there's a market on. They can't actually interact or put forward any ideas in any sort of way. There's no public speaking. There's no way for them to act as it would be in a town square.
I understand. So you're meaning more in terms of a freedom of sort of expression.
Yes.
Okay.
And only one political party's in there. That's just outrageous for me. I mean, there should be a political corner. If people want to come and see the politics, they're in one corner. Especially at local election time, when council candidates are skulking around the outside of the market and accosting people at different areas. If you wanted to speak to a candidate, you'd know where they were.
Just to very briefly, just as much as politicians do like the sound of our own voices, do you not think that sometimes that's actually discouraging for shoppers, is to be accosted by lots of political opinion and things?
Oh, definitely, and that would be the point of making a political area so that they're all in one spot, rather than, especially at local election time when they're spread all over town and accosting people in different places. If they're all in one place, if you wanted to talk about politics, that's where you'd go.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barker.
That completes item number 4. We move now to item 5.1 on the agenda, confirmation of the minutes. Item 5.1, minutes of a meeting of the 29th of November last year. Call for someone to move that be true and correct record. Councillor Courtney has moved, and Mr. Peters has seconded. Any matters arising, any corrections, any points wish to be raised? We have Mr. Murray and Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Look, I draw your attention to page 11 of those minutes. Again, a wee bit of a technical point in these minutes, but it says at 9:32 we resumed in public session at 9:49, at which time Mr. Murray returned to the meeting, but it doesn't actually say what time I left in this section of the minutes, and I just wondered if it would be appropriate, in accordance with consistency on page 9, where it says Councillor Walker left the meeting at 9:09 until 9:11. For interest of consistency, it should say I left the meeting at whatever time I left and rejoined at 9:32.
That can be corrected, I believe. That will be corrected. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a spelling correction on page 15 is Councillor Gail Collingwood, and we're often mixed up, but I'd have to say that in this case they've adopted my spelling instead of hers, which in the reverse happened when I was first elected, but I just thought it was fair on her part to have her name spelt without the E on the end.
We will have that corrected. Thank you. No other points? It's been moved that the minutes be approved as a true and correct record. I'll put it. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Against, no. Carried. Thank you. Chairperson's report. I don't have any written report. I just take note of some of the things in the agenda. It's wonderful to see that we have such great debt management in this council, that we've had such a good rating from Standard & Poor's, and we do that year on year, and I think it's a compliment to our set-up, and particularly our Audit, Risk and Finance Committee, and of course all councillors. The other thing that I've noted was the increase in tourist spending in the last year, from $348 million to $368 million of tourist spending in our city, which I think is fantastic, and that's in the content of our agenda. So that's all of the chairperson's report. It doesn't need a motion. Item number 7, international relationships policy. You'll note that that's been set down for the next meeting. Which brings us now to item number 8, the Nelson Regional Development Agency, and welcome, Your Worship, the Mayor.
Kia ora. Apologies for lateness.
We have already recorded your apology for lateness and accepted it. So we have item 8, and Ms. Barton is going to present the report, which is on pages 22 to 42.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to take the report as read, but I'm also going to ask Mr. Jagurtha to come to the table because I need to let you all know, I think you all probably do know, that there'll be a switch over in terms of who will be the relationship person within the council for the NRDA, and Mark Jagurtha has kindly taken that role on. It's got to the stage now where my business as usual is swamping me and I need some assistance, and I want to thank Mark for saying that he will do it. Thank you. Okay, so in terms of the report itself, I'll take it as read. We have been working, you'll recall that this came to the committee in November last year and it was left to lie on the table. We have had since then a number of conversations with Tasman District Council, and Tasman District Council through Sharon Flood, their policy manager, has seen this report and knows the content of it and is accepting of that content, and will be working with the NRDA, and Mark Rawson's here today, over the next 3 weeks to 4 weeks to bring this back to the committee in terms of the statement of expectation. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Right, the meeting is open for questions. We've got Councillor Courtney.
Mr. Chair, and thank you, Officer Barton, for a very interesting and clear report. I think it's a sign of thoroughness. Your consultation with TDC, do you think this might lead eventually to them coming back into the fold? I was very disappointed that they left and they contract now the work they want done by the NRDA, and I was just hoping that perhaps this might lead to a more closer working relationship going forward.
So you'll notice that the report itself refers to councils, so that it's very much geared to making sure that we can ensure that for the 2019-20 year that they come back into the arrangement that was previously had, which was that we fund NRDA and they pay us and then we pay that, so we come together. Yes.
Well, I'm delighted to hear that.
Yes.
Councillor Dalberg.
Mr. Chair, just picking up that point, I noticed page 23, the TDC have reduced to 300,000. What were they initially?
From memory, there's 100,000 that has been reduced, which was related to tourism eyesight development.
So they were 400,000 earlier then?
That's correct.
And we're still 900?
That's correct.
Good, thanks.
Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just following on from that, what difference will the 100,000 make in terms of what we do for those factors here for the Nelson region, and what doesn't get done that previously would have benefited Tasman?
So perhaps it's best if Mr. Rawson answers that, Mr. Chair, in terms of...
You're welcome to join the table, Mark.
Sure. Morning, everybody.
Morning, Mark.
Through you, Mr. Chair. In short, two things. One is with the rearrangement from TDC and how they've funded some of the regional eyesights, basically, or the promotion organisations that sit around that, like Tasman Bay Promotions, Golden Bay Promotions. We actually have been working with those entities quite well, and they've actually funded us to undertake some activities on behalf of them as a collective. So while there's been 100,000 is a lot to take out of our operation, we have managed to recoup some of that through service delivery to the regional organisations, as opposed to being funded centrally through council to deliver those services. In particular, I have to say, with Tasman Bay Promotions Group, who's the biggest one, sort of Motueka through to criteria, if you like. That'll be the first bit. The second element, which I do think is reflected in this report and the ask of us, is we are having quite a focus on some of the priorities, in particular the likes of the centre city of Nelson, and how we can play a role in that, which is obviously very much, well, in my view, it's absolutely critical for the region, but it is seen as being a little bit more Nelson-centric. So we have tried to reflect the level of funding and the type of approach we are taking, but I am also just wanted to reiterate that everything we're doing, we're looking at a regional approach to the economy, because business does not see the boundaries, and certainly investment flows don't. So recouped a little bit, shifting our focus in some areas, and that's pretty much the answer at the moment.
Thank you very much. I've got a question to pop in here. My question is about section 4.13 of the report, council priorities. I'm wondering if you can just outline how you will work with stakeholders and businesses in Nelson to work towards, in particular, the city centre development, particularly sustainability, and will you be working with organisations who are in that field of activity in our city to promote that in our city and the smart little city?
So through you, Mr. Chair, we're pretty much right in the middle of the Centre City development team, alongside Claire's team from Nelson City and the likes of Simon from Uniquely Nelson, and the other commercial participants that are in that program of work. So I feel like we are all connected at the hip on that piece. What I would say also is, for some of the wider business community priorities, we've effectively worked quite hard with the likes of NMIT and the Chamber in establishing some what you might call reference groups of different sections of the business community to provide us some advice on their views of what the priorities look like in the region. And I have to say that unanimously keeps coming back to the role of the attraction and retention of talent as the thing that's keeping most of them awake for the future. But we have some big business groups that we work with through what's called the Nelson Innovation Neighbourhood, which is a nice collective of voices. And then on the other hand, particularly with the new Chief Executive, working with the Chamber, understanding the views of the smaller, say to medium-sized business community.
So we have a vision of being known as the smart little city. So you're committed to working towards helping this council achieve that image of itself throughout this nation. We want to be the leading city in terms of innovation and smartness.
Yeah, look, absolutely, and I would add to that, and the commercial hub of the top of the south, which I feel is like a really important part of that platform.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rutledge.
Thank you. A couple of questions from me. And one is you mentioned the eyesights and how that's working in TDC's region. Have you turned your mind to your role in the eyesight in Nelson and how that fits in with our city vision and the service delivery? And I guess, is that something that we need to make explicit in our question to officers, I suppose?
Yeah. Do you want to answer the eyesight question, and then I can?
Certainly. So just to touch on your point, yes, it's been entertaining my mind for about 2 years. We have been through a process with a whole lot of participants to effectively come up with a 4-point plan for the future model for an eyesight, for a regional eyesight in New Zealand. And the point is, if it's just the Nelson eyesight, then the serious challenges, this needs to be understood and delivered as part of a national network. So, this week, I just managed to pitch that proposal to both an organisation called Eyesight New Zealand, which runs the network, and Tourism New Zealand, who effectively own and fund part of that operation. And we are now successfully got that proposal into their future planning, and I will bring that back to council at some point. We feel like we've done a whole lot of work now, and we've got a plan and a way forward, but it will need to align to a national approach, because if we're just going to try and do it regionally, to be fair, the business model has been disrupted that much, and visitor flows have changed, or their flow for information have changed that much, that it would be a struggle if we were just going to try and do it. in isolation. So that's where that's at. We've definitely done a lot of work, and I'm more than happy to take council through that at some stage, or the appropriate people.
Thank you.
So through you, Mr Chair, I don't think we need to be explicit in terms of the paper. It is a conversation that we've been having, and there will be a paper coming back.
Okay, and quickly move on. How are you ensuring that you're working collaboratively with other organisations that Nelson fund? And I guess particularly with the focus on Centre City, we've got Uniquely Nelson in that mix as well. How are you ensuring we get maximum value for our collective spend there and not doubling up?
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree more that that's actually one of the priorities, and I feel like we are hopefully trying to play a role of actually ensuring you are getting maximum value from the entities that are all participating in certain elements of the development of the city. So obviously, Uniquely Nelson, we engage with them through the City Centre project, but then more operationally, my team engage with them a lot around the City Centres proposition as part of the overall visit proposition in particular. So I feel like that happens operationally almost fairly regularly. I was going to say daily, but it's probably not quite right. In respect of the other entity you're probably talking about, in respect of the business trust, we've obviously got Mahi Tahi collaboration up and going, and we just actually pulled together all of the sort of the 11 entities, if you like, that are focusing on innovation services in the region, with a view to coming up with a framework of how we actually might best look at the best value for money and focus on the services that are required by the customer. NTBT are obviously part of that. Yep, I'm the first person to say it would be great if they were part of Mahi Tahi CoLab, because I feel like from a customer perspective that's what we're trying to aim for. The last point I'd make is we do have 70 to nearly 100 visitor sector business partners that are a pretty critical part of our economy too, and we sort of have a direct relationship with them daily, including working with the organisations that represent sort of subsectors, i.e. Tasman Bay Promotions, Golden Bay Promotions, not so much the Murchison team at the moment.
Thank you. Finally from me, Mr Chair, so all done in one. 4.13.9, the Titaihu Strategy 2077. It says NRDA is expected to demonstrate active support of initiatives to cover the wider region. Can you assure us that they are resourced to contribute out as wide as this might, I'm interpreting this as suggesting, and that this is returning genuine value to Nelson as opposed to other regions that aren't chipping in?
Yeah. So the Titaihu strategy covers Marlborough, Nelson and Tasman. Marlborough have their own representatives on both the working group and the steering group. So Nelson and Tasman, NRDA is part of that conversation and a necessary component of it, and they've been resourced in terms of staffing to be able to participate in that piece of work.
Thank you. The Mayor?
Well, thank you, Mr Chair. I just want to perhaps take us back to the paper, noting that this is essentially the statement of expectation. This is the ask. The SOI is the response that comes later. So I'm not expecting Mark to be responding to how he's going to do this today. That's for another paper. So this is the ask. So going to the ask, I just have a question for Claire. Has Sharon socialised this paper with the Chief Executive and Mayor of Tasman District Council? And if she has, do we have their endorsement for what's in the content of it today?
So as far as I'm aware, she has socialised it with them, but I haven't heard anything in terms of a written response from either of those, Chief Executive and Mayor.
All right, then I'll just note that that's an important step in terms of the alignment, so we need to make sure that that is what we've got here isn't sitting out of kilter. Since, just for the benefit of the committee, since we last met, we have had a round table with the Mayor and Chief Executive of Tasman District Council, and Ms Flood and Ms Barton and our Chief Executive and myself, and canvassed a range of matters, including that the preference that TDC continue to contract for services through Nelson City Council, which I think is a
positive outcome. In terms of the matters that were discussed, there was a focus around the value proposition of primary production and NRD's focus on what we might call our regional brilliant basics, being that primary sector. Is that adequately reflected in the SOE?
So in terms of what I have set out here, the council priority section, which is 4.13.1, I think we could be a bit more explicit to say resilient primary industry as part of that, as an example, but the conversation will be happening anyway around that with NRDA, so that when they bring it back to the next committee meeting, we'll have that as part of the...
I would ask speakers at that end of the table, please bring the microphone a little closer.
Sure.
So that we can all hear.
Okay. So just through you, Mr. Chair, so Claire, can you just tell me where that was again, that you think that should come into it?
So 4.13.1, which talks about council priorities, so that's intended to cover both councils.
Right.
At the moment, there's some examples in there, which is city centre development, sustainability and smart little city vision. One of them could be around resilient primary industries.
Mr. Chair, I would quite like that wording included if we're going to, if we're going to have it in the document, or just note it in the minutes today, so that we, in terms of the exchange of letters, because this is a letter exchange that happens at this stage.
Yeah, I'm quite happy for that. In fact, I was keen to see this section go in the very beginning.
Right, thank you. And then just a couple more very quickly, and perhaps related to the resilient primary sector, but I think it's more than that, is around water security and the value proposition around water in the region, given we've got a Waimea Dam proposal that's moving forward. How is that something that you think is relevant to the SOE-SOI discussion with NRDA?
So through you, Mr. Chair, there is at the moment an application in terms of Provincial Growth Fund around resilience for both drought and fire, and that work would help inform what we might need to have NRDA's input to. If the council is of a mind to include something, it could be one of the other examples that we would focus on for the conversation.
So through you, Mr. Chair, it's not around the resilience of drought and fire, it's actually around the value proposition of a water supply. So it's actually that ability for high value, potentially high value production and what that might look like. So looking at the productive soils, the opportunities that exist on the Waimea Plains, and the proposition for the regional economy about having a functioning dam.
Maybe if I could just comment through you, Mr. Chair. One section of the regional strategy actually will have quite a strong focus on primarily value-add food and beverage, which is primarily actually saying the conditions on the Waimea Plains in particular are about to change forever. Unfortunately, they're kind of a bit like that right now. That requires the region to start to think about what does that value-add really look like, because the growing conditions will be a lot more certain. So I think we'll deal with it through the regional strategy piece of work.
You can't hear.
We couldn't hear what Mr. Rawson was saying. You have to talk to the room.
Sorry. All I was saying was one part of the regional strategy piece of work is very much focused on the value-add food and beverage sector, and in my view that will have quite a strong focus around the change that will come to the region as a result of safe and secure water supply, particularly onto the Waimea Plains, where the majority of the supply of that is coming. I'm pretty confident that will be a big focus of that strategy, and therefore our role in that in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It'd be good, and so as long as we're capturing that, because I do think that's relevant to the owner, as a shareholder. The final issues, just to cover off, and hopefully you can hear me all right. It's a very, I'd have to just like to say to you, it's a very odd experience sitting down at this end. I'm not sure if I like it or I don't like it. I'm going to try it for a day and see how I feel at the end.
Carry on, we're hearing you loud and clear.
Page 15, I just will take you back to page 15 of today's agenda, and you'll see in there a suite of bullet points at the top of the page that are part of the SOI discussion with the Bishop Suter Trust, and there are elements there that I would want to see in this SOI, and I just want to perhaps ask Ms. Barton if they have been captured somewhere in the suite of items that are identified in this one. I can't see several of them, but they may be embedded or implied somewhere else. If they're not, then I think that wording is quite useful.
So through you, Mr Chair, can I clarify, is that all of those ones that are on page 15 at the top under the bullet points?
Yes, so governance succession planning, hopefully that's captured somewhere in that list we had today, because that's very important, but if it's not, then we need to.
Yes, that's part of the business as usual.
Business as usual section, all right. The general expectations, resilience and good employer obligations.
Again, that's part of the general business.
And the climate change responsiveness, I couldn't see that adequately from my perspective.
It's not explicitly stated, so we could note that as one of the things under the council section.
Through you, Mr Chair, I would like that included. That should be in every SOE, SOI of all of our CCOs and CCTOs, in my view. And then the final...
I agree, Your Worship, and I believe that I had looked for that in my early discussions. I thought it might have been covered in the sustainability section there, but this is much better to have it in total.
Thank you. And then the final one, which is actually quite on point, and quite on point, I think should be included. So it was included quite deliberately for the Bishop Suter, because we do want the Bishop Suter to develop a relationship with Tasman District with a view to increasing funding from that source. And I would think that was quite important given the disparity at the moment, that we would be requesting NRDA to use their endeavours to do the same. So that's all I've got to add to this one today, thank you. But I would like those included.
I think Ms Barton will take note of all those, and in the correspondence that goes with our requests, that they'll be included. Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor McGurk.
Thank you, non-member of the committee. Thanks for your indulgence. Just a couple of questions, I guess, or issues. When I was looking through the SOI on page 31 of our agenda, paragraph 7 and 8, I noticed that it seems to be a shift in, you allude to a shift into from the 5 primary industries, the 5 Fs, into more value-added support and supporting that kind of industry. And then notice the next paragraph, productivity growth and income levels are well below the national average. Then I look into the document itself at page 34 on item 5. The only thing you really talk about talent attraction is a program developed, initial priority is. I'm just wondering, any thought about some hard measures about the sorts of things I'm looking at is increasing productivity, the attraction of high value jobs and a raise in income across the board as part of regional economic development. I'm just wondering a bit of feedback or comment on that.
From my perspective, what we're planning to do is to come back with a statement of intent that has effectively 2 measures in each of our focus areas. One of those is an outcome-based measure, which would deal with ultimately we can contribute to either raising wages, improvements in productivity, things that man in the street will hopefully generally associate with. And then the second part is the performance measure element, which is related to what Nelson Regional Development Agency is actually undertaking, and we can control and manage, because I'm a little bit conscious that obviously those outcomes have heaps of other, and unfortunately it's probably not going to look too good given the situation we have right at the moment in the next 12 months, for example. What I would say, just to reassure you, the linkage between the talent attraction piece of work is effectively because all of the organisations are telling us for them to be able to lift and shift from where they are today. It is the talent that we need to get into the organisations to enable them to be able to do that, and that's not talent that they've currently got available to them. And the example being, why is productivity like it is? In the last 5 years, manufacturing sector added the most jobs in the Nelson Tasman region by around about, I think it was something like 16 to 19%, I can't remember the exact number, but GDP growth or economic output of that sector was only around about 5 or 6%. So i.e., we added a whole lot more jobs, we didn't actually anywhere near add the comparable value, and hence wages in the region are, its productivity is a reflection of people not being able to afford to pay the higher wage in the region. So that's why we're sort of focusing on linking those 2 things together. Councillor Dahlberg.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chair. My first one on the increasing the funding from TDC has been covered off. The second one, realise interested in page 34, and it comes in under 2.1 and section 2.4 on the delivering the Nelson City identity story, which was something that interested us way back. And we've got a nice cute as the first place-based subset story of the regional identity by December. How are we going there, and does that, and what does that actually mean?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I'm bringing the 6-month report to you really soon. I think either this month or next month's meeting. At any rate, it's with Claire now, and that identifies that we haven't actually started that piece of work yet, but we will have it completed by June, and the only reason for that is because we've been working alongside the whole Centre City project team, and particularly waiting for the likes of Alan to come and get in place to help put that piece of work together. What that effectively means is we focused on getting the regional identity story and the pillars for the whole region nailed, and that gives us a framework for us to be able to work from. Then the second part of that is to use that framework to tell the story of the places of Nelson Tasman. And the first one we're focusing on is the Centre City of Nelson. So if you get what I mean, we're trying to sort of say there's a regional position, and then there is some obviously value propositions that are a little different for certain parts of the region.
I get it, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that completes questions. So we have, in the interest of being businesslike and doing it, we've included into this recommendation the part in red, which covers the points raised that we believe should be included in this request to the organisation, in line with the ones that we're doing to other organisations. So this is what you raised, Your Worship. I'll call for someone to move the recommendation. And Councillor Courtney has moved it. I'll call for a seconder. Councillor Dahlberg has seconded it. It's open for any discussion. It's been well canvassed. You wish to speak, Councillor Courtney?
I just want to say how very important this material is, this piece of work, and I want to thank Officer Barton for it. I think it's going to be the start of a rebuilding of a relationship, quite frankly, and we must work together with TDC and ourselves to compete with other regions. This, to me, is incredibly important. I won't say I was uneased when they moved away and wanted to go directly and have a separate contract with the Nelson Regional Development Agency and do separate contracting work with them. We have to work together as a partnership, an equal partner. And it was unfortunate when they moved away like that. But look, I think I got a clear indication from our officer that the purpose of this is to build that relationship and have them back in the family. It's a good piece of work. And they have to, I look for the day, I really want to see the day where we're contributing equally to this, because we are one region. It can't be 900,000 to 300,000, it can't be. And I'm not being political here and wanting to denigrate in any way the TDC decisions that they've made, but there's a new day tomorrow, and I'm optimistic that this could be the start of something really, really good for our region. The logo says Nelson Tasman, and I want to see that we build on that now and go forward as a team.
Thank you very much. I just would ask the staff to be aware of the risk with the events fund. I'd like to see that situation addressed, and we don't have the situation that arose happening again. It's just a comment that I'd pass on to staff in relation to that. There are no further speakers. Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to speak very briefly in support of this. I think it was worth taking a pause and bringing this back, and I'm very happy with the document that we've got today. I would just say that I think there was some confusion as to what TDC wished to do and how that came through to us. They're very comfortable and have always been very comfortable coming through the contract with NCC to do it that way. At some point in the future, like Councillor Courtney, I would like to get perhaps back to a shareholding relationship, but that, you know, we didn't have that previously with the Regional Development Agency. We worked through a process to bring tourism and the Regional Development Agency together, and I think that's the right thing because it's all part of the economic base. And certainly in terms of where we're sitting at the moment, the relationship with Tasman District Council is extremely strong and positive, and I think it will go from strength to strength.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dahlberg.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm supporting this, and again, it's one of those developing a concept, and I get the bit before we had fractions and people wanting the word being value for money, and I think it's very right that we're actually looking to justify our $950,000 of ratepayers' money. But what I do like in here is that they are getting other funders on board. There's other major business in the region that are now seeing the value, and that's what we are. The council is supposed to be a facilitator to develop stuff, and I do think we're moving in the right direction. I do like the staff and the quality of things we're talking about now. Yes, there was a bit of teething problem. I like the fact that we're now focusing on what we're getting for Nelson City as the starting point of what happens in the region. I like the idea we're sharing. I do like the idea we're caring about us.
Thank you very much. If there are no further speakers, I'll put it. All those in favour will say aye. Aye. Ayes. The noes to the... No noes. I declare it carried. Thank you very much, team. We move now to item number 9, the Governance Committee Quarterly Report, pages 43 to 54. At the conclusion of this, we'll have a cup of tea, a morning tea. So we just have to get through this item. And here, Ms. McDonald, this is your presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think we can just take the report as read pretty much. You'll see we've highlighted some key developments, some of those still ongoing. Annual plan, very busy with that still. Lagoimas, we get about 200 of those a year, so that's a constant effort. Under the operating revenue on page 45, you'll see got 2 items there with quite a bit of budget. One of those is the special dividend from Port Nelson. The other is forestry, although if you flip the page and look at the operating expenditure, you'll see there's a cost of almost the same amount, so that almost cancels that one out. And then at the back we have those projects attached, 3 of them relating to Civic House and 1 relating to the annual plan. So I'll just leave it for any questions.
Thank you, Nikki. Yes, I thought it was a very good report. It covers those major items. Are there any questions? Councillor Dahlberg.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Look, the comment from the staff, we do see nice incomes and we see bigger cost structure. And one of the questions I'd have on is forestry. Are we actually going to make any money out of our forestry block when we finish it and it's in the ground, and hopefully we're planting natives based on the Regional Development Fund? That'll be fabulous. Question to the staff is, are we actually going to make a net return on the forestry investments? Because I see more costs than I see and risk factors.
I'm quite happy for Mr. Murray, who is our representative in this area and our expert, to answer on behalf of the staff.
Kia ora everyone. Yes, thank you. Through the chair, happy to respond to that. Look, you need to understand that while it's reported the way it's reported in the papers, the forestry actually made a $300,000 surplus for the 6 months that you're looking at. So while it's over budget, revenue's up and costs are up, we are running at a 300k surplus for the 6 months. So answer to your question, there's your return. Sitting underneath that though, a word of caution, very definitely, because the reason for the expense overrun is basically twofold. One, we are in a new environment for harvesting, and we take our harvesting responsibilities very, very seriously in terms of making sure that we are environmentally up there and consistent with the standards we need to be meeting. So we recently went into a regime with the national standards coming in, which changed how we do our forestry logging operations, and that has increased the standard, and it quite frankly is increasing our costs. Simple as that. Where we could, and this is a real good example, where you could have run a truck through a stream or a creek, and this is a real live issue at the moment, you can no longer do that. You've got to build a bridge. There's $100,000 that we're looking at right there. So we're still coming to grips with the cost or the additional cost that the national standard is going to impose on our forests, but they are coming. The second issue that we've got sitting in these numbers here today is that you will be aware that we do have a block of trees up by the Tantragee that we are dealing with, and that is incurring some cost as we're trying to figure out the solution to that. I understand we've all been briefed on that before in previous meetings. So look, short answer is yes, we are making money from the forest. It's all looking positive for the next 6 months as well, but we do have an increased cost regime coming towards us.
Thank you. I've got a question to the Chief Executive arising from yesterday's meeting of the Sports and Recreation Committee, where when we were dealing with the same item, the quarterly report, you indicated that the next quarterly report is going to be one that shows the bottom line for each area. And so instead of having an explanation under revenue and an explanation under expenditure, you'll have one combined. Are you going to do the same for this committee?
Yeah, it'll be a standard approach for all committees. So we'll have the graphs for revenue, the graphs for expenditure, and then an explanation for the variances. So you just won't see that revenue's up, and then later on you find out that expenditure's up too. And we'll also be showing that the profit and loss for each of these activities as well as a section.
Thank you very much. Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like, through you, to the Officer McDonald, 4.5 on page 44, the 55 Lagorma requests between October the 1st and the 31st of December this year. Are they up on previous quarters?
Through the chair, yes, that was a question I had because we did seem to be getting a lot, but we've looked back and the pattern seems to be pretty similar, so we don't think so actually overall.
Can I just follow on from that then? Is there something we could learn from it? I'm wondering what sort of questions they're asking. Where are they going with this? Is there a regular pattern, or are we falling down in our communication? That's where the direction I'm coming from. Could we do better? Is there a gap there?
Through the chair, the sort of requests we get are usually for quite detailed information that usually the entire community wouldn't be interested in, but are of particular interest to individuals or groups. What we are working towards is having a portal on our website where we will put up all of those responses, and then others who might be interested in the same issue don't need to approach us, and they can see it there. And we're also trying to be more proactive about releasing public excluded reports from the past that have now come to a stage where they can be public. So it's part of a push to make all of our information more available.
In relation to that, I would ask that when you are handling the communications regarding all of these Lagorma requests, us councillors, we are very keen to know what they are and what the outcomes and the answers are. So it is important that we know. Been moved by Councillor Alberg, seconded by the Mayor. So it's been moved and seconded. Anyone wish to speak? Your Worship?
I just had a few more questions, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I was signalling for a question, but I'm happy to second.
Right.
Look, just a couple of questions. Now, coming back to the Lagorma at 5.5, and it's no need to be looking at it, but just
4.5.
Sorry, 4.5. I've just got a query. I was listening to a Radio New Zealand story yesterday about the challenge for journalists with the current government, and the real challenge where media inquiries were being treated. They were very frustrated, and what they saw as a very negative step, that the government was treating media inquiries as Official Information Act requests. Can I just be reassured that that is not the approach that we take here? Because I really think that's a fairly draconian step for a government to be taking.
Yes, through the chair, no, that's not the approach our communications team is making. They try to be as responsive as possible to the media, so to get back to them in the day if possible, and the next day, hopefully, if not.
Thank you for that reassurance.
Sometimes we get requests like, what was the most popular name for dogs in 2018? Well, sometimes those requests may take a little longer. Yes.
All right. Right, thank you, okay. All right, so, but our general media, we're certainly not putting it into, that's excellent. Now, just last questions, just on page 54. We've got the top three there around economic, we've got some targets, and I was looking back at the statement of intent from NRDA, and I can see some of their metrics. Where are these metrics from, these ones here, those top three? Are they in an activity management plan or something? Where do they come from?
Chris Paulson, if you have a look at the column.
Through the chair, this is part of the economic activity, which is now passed to my group, and those metrics are provided by the NRDA. You can see in brackets there under the further information when they're coming from the NRDA. So those first two are, and then the spending and the CBD, that's one that we gather the information on.
So I just wanted, I can see they're there, but is that, how often do we take performance indicators and measurements from other organisations to use as our own? Do we do that for Port Nelson? Do we have like cargo volumes or anything else like that? I just...
Through the chair, it varies, but we do have some others, I believe, for example, you know, the SUTA and how its operation, you know, the number of visitors and so on, that's one that we take on, so there are others.
So just in terms of, the reason I'm asking around this is because it goes into our annual report. So, you know, we get measured on this. So I'm just wondering what degree of influence, so if it's a performance measure for Nelson City Council, what degree of influence do we have around those performance measures? Because you see, I don't like getting those frowny faces on those reports. But I'm also going, I like to control the controllables, but I don't particularly like being measured around things that are outside of my control.
Through the chair, yes, that's a good point. I mean, we did go through these at the long-term plan, so the next opportunity to change them will be the next long-term plan, but council may wish to not take on any that involve agencies. I mean, the logic is that we fund and we set the objectives for these agencies, so we take on some of the responsibility for the outcomes they produce. But that's absolutely a decision for council at long-term plan time, what measures they want to be accountable for.
I'm just very going to flag, Mr. Chair, that I think we probably, as we go through our activity management plans and our planning processes, we really need to be being quite specific and clear about what it is that this council is, its actions, and therefore its measurements around its responses. So GDP is, you know, from the influencing factors around GDP, well, I can think of some that are going on right now that are probably going to be pretty messy for us when it comes to the next 12 months. So there are certainly a lot of factors that are outside our control. So for that one, I just think if we're reporting on it, it really needs some commentary around it because, you know, the biggest drought we've had for 80 years is going to have an impact on GDP.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before you arrived in my chair's report, I gave evidence of this one, the second one there, the increased tourist spend in Nelson, I found very pleasing, which went from $348 to $365 million in the year, which very good. Right, there's no further speakers. It's been moved and seconded. I'll put it. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Against, no. Carried. We're going to adjourn for morning tea. And can I say, I have a hope that this is going to be a momentous day, the day that the drought broke. That's my hope.
We need 20 millimetres, okay?
Yeah.
20 millimetres.
Yeah.
I didn't realise.
Well,
You're part of the history.
Yeah.
you want to start with that? That's what he said.
Right, I declare the meeting reconvened. We've completed agenda items through to item 9, which brings us to item number 10, exclusion of the public. We have in addition to the recommendation, which allows us to have Ms. Knight remain for the item that relates to the market and opportunity for questions and so forth. So it's been moved by Councillor Noonan and seconded by Councillor Dahlberg that the public be excluded and that Ms. Knight be able to remain. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Adam. Is Adam's gone? Thank you, Adam. I'll put it all in favour, say aye. Aye. Against, no, carried. Thank you. Public are now excluded. We move to the blue papers. And we will change the order of business to do item number 2 first.
You're just checking that the resolution we just passed was to allow someone to stay but not to move into public excluded, is that right? Or did we do it all in one go?
The whole lot.
Okay.
The whole recommendation was including going into public excluded and allowing Ms. Knight to remain.
Thank you.
So we're all quite clear on that. The YouTube's not working anymore.